So Jenny was sitting reading her favorite magazine when suddenly an ad pops for an all-expenses paid cruise for the low price of $500. She excitedly goes to Jack, her husband, and shows him the ad. "Look, Jack," she says, "it's in 2 days, only $500. "I'll be honest with you," said husband. "I have too much work for a cruise. How about you go and have a good time?" His wife is a bit disappointed, but bounces back and decides she will have a good time anyway. The next day, Jack is in his office when his co-worker, who is also his mistress, comes to him excitedly. "Look, Jack," she says, "there's this cruise tomorrow that is on sale. Only $500. "I'm really not into cruises, to be honest," replies Jack. "Here's $500. Why don't you go and have a good time?" She agrees to do just so, and as it turns out, both his wife and his mistress ended up going on the same cruise. A few days later, his wife comes back from the cruise. As she tells him how much fun she had, she shows him photos she took. While looking them over, Jack notices that his lover Brenda is in some of the photos in the background. He points to her and asks his wife, "Who's she?" His wife replied, "A call here of the cruise slut, because she slept with half of the men there." The next day, Jack goes to the office and gets the same excited story, accompanied by photos from his mistress Brenda. Once again, he sees a familiar face in some of the photos. His wife. He then points to his wife and asks Brenda, "Who is she?" "Oh, her," says Brenda. "She's such a nice woman. With all the men on board, she never left her husband's side for a second." So, lying on his deathbed, an elderly man made his final request to his wife. "Honey, I'm almost out of time, and there's something I'd like you to do for me when I'm gone." She nodded her head and said, "You can count on me. Anything you ask, I'll make sure it's done." "I want you to wed my buddy Jacob," he said, his voice filled with emotion. Astonished, his wife replied, "Jacob? But I thought you couldn't stand him." He smiled, looked her straight in the eyes, and answered, "That's precisely why." So after a long flight from America, a traveler arrived in Ireland, eager to experience the famous Irish pubs. He had heard so much about the Irish love for style and was excited to see if the rumors were true. As he made his way through the bustling streets, he came across a cozy pub with a sign outside that read, "Best pint of Guinness in town." The American couldn't resist and made his way inside. The bar was packed with locals, all chatting and laughing over pints of beer. The traveler took a deep breath, savoring the smell of roasted barley and hops. He walked straight up to the bar, feeling confident and adventurous. It was then that he decided to make a bet. He pulled out a wad of cash and announced to the entire bar, "I've just arrived from America, and I've heard tales of how much the Irish drink stout. I've got $500 for anyone who can drink 10 pints of Guinness in 10 minutes or less." The barkeep chuckled at the traveler's offer, but the rest of the patrons remained silent. The American was surprised by their lack of enthusiasm and wondered if he had offended them in some way. One patron even got up and left, but the traveler didn't let this dampen his spirits. He ordered a pint of Guinness for himself and settled in at the bar, determined to enjoy his trip to Ireland. It wasn't until a few minutes later that the man who had left earlier barged back into the pub. "Aren't you the fella who made a wager?" he asked, a mischievous twinkle in his eye. The American's eyes lit up with excitement. "Yep, that's me. I'll give you $500 if you can drink 10 pints of Guinness in 10 minutes or less. The Irish lad grinned. "All right, I'll take your wager." And they called out for the bartender to line up 10 pints. The crowd at the bar started to get interested, and they gathered around the American and the Irish lad, curious to see what would happen next. The American pulled back the cuff of his shirt to check his watch and told the Irish lad when to start. The crowd started to cheer as the Irish lad poured the pints down his throat as if he greased his throat with bacon fat before he started. And much to everyone's surprise, the Irish lad downed all 10 pints in just 9 minutes and 13 seconds. The crowd roared with excitement as the American handed over the wad of cash. "I've just got to ask," the American said. "Aren't you the guy who left when I first called out my wager?" The Irish lad nodded. "I had to go to the pub next door to make sure I could do it." So little Johnny and his father were at a horse auction, and Johnny watched as his father examined each horse carefully. He ran his hands up and down the horse's legs, rump and chest, checking for any signs of illness or injury. After a few minutes, Johnny asked his father, "Why are you doing that?" His father explained, "I have to make sure that the horses I'm considering buying are healthy and in good condition. It's important to do this before I make a purchase." But Johnny looked worried and said, "Dad, I think the UPS guy wants to buy Mum." Dave was getting a haircut prior to a trip to Rome. He mentioned the trip to the barber, who responded, "Why would anyone want to go there? It's crowded and dirty and full of Italians. You're crazy to go to Rome. So how are you getting there?" "We're taking United," was the reply. "We got a great rate." "United!" exclaimed the barber. "That's a terrible airline. Their planes are old, their flight attendants are ugly, and they're always late. So where are you staying in Rome?" "We'll be at the Downtown International Marriott." "That dump! That's the worst hotel in Rome. The rooms are small, the service is surly, and they're overpriced. So what you're doing when you get there?" "We're going to go to see the Vatican, and we hope to see the Pope." "That's rich," laughed the barber. "You and a million other people trying to see him. He'll look the size of an ant. Boy, good luck on this lousy trip of yours. You're going to need it." A month later, Dave again came in for his regular haircut. The barber asked him about his trip to Rome. "It was wonderful," explained Dave. "Not only were we on time, in one of United's brand new planes, but it was overbooked, and they bumped us up to first class. The food and wine were wonderful, and I had a beautiful young stewardess who waited on me hand and foot." "And the hotel?" "Well, it was great. They just finished a $25 million remodeling job, and now it's the finest hotel in the city. They were overbooked too, so they apologized and gave us the presidential suite at no extra charge." "Well," muttered the barber, "I know you didn't get to see the Pope. Actually, we were quite lucky, for as we toured the Vatican, a Swiss guard tapped me on the shoulder and explained that the Pope likes to meet some of the visitors, and if I'd be so kind as to step into his private room and wait, the Pope would personally greet me." Sure enough, 5 minutes later, the Pope walked in. As I knelt down, he spoke to me. What did he say? He said, "Where'd you get this shitty haircut?" Subscribe to the channel. This is important. It will help me continue my work.